What kind of a show are you guys putting on here today?
You're not interested in art?
No.
Now look, we're going to do this thing. We're going to have a conversation.
From Chicago, this is Filmspotting. I'm Josh Larson.
And I'm Adam Kempenaar.
After years of war, no one could stand between my men. And home.
There are few sure things about the 2026 movie year, except for what happens on July 17th.
That's the release date for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, a film we're eager to see, but not the only upcoming title we're excited about. This week, it's our 2026 movie preview.
Plus, 28 years later, The Bone Temple, ahead on Filmspotting.
Okay, let's turn this up to 11.
Welcome to Filmspotting. Well, you're not quite Carmen Sandiego, but I'm still going to ask, where in the world is Josh Larson this week?
I was always jealous of Carmen Sandiego. We are in lovely, sunny Adam, the bright sun shining on us for 2 days now in Sevilla. A wonderful, wonderful town that is playing The Bone Temple. Walked by a theater today. I did want to try to fit it in, but I think at least the theater near us where we're staying, they don't show any movies until the evening. It was later. Couldn't squeeze in a daytime screening. And I'm afraid I had a flamenco show to catch, Adam. Not performing.
Okay,
just
priorities.
Just observing, but we had to see that at night. Couldn't fit in the Bone Temple. So I'm glad you were at least able to see it, and we're going to still have a review.
So you shirked your film spotting duties and you're talking about the sun. Ask me what the temperature is where I am, Josh.
I hear it's rough. I know today it was balmy 5 degrees in Chicago. How is it in your parts?
Yeah, it's exactly 5 degrees, but feels like minus 18.
Great. Yeah. I don't need that at this point in my life,
yourself.
But I will be returning to it at some point.
Yes. Vulture critic Roxana Hadadi joins me for a review of 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Listeners will share their picks for the most anticipated film of the first half of the new year, and we will have a new poll asking you to consider Diane Keaton's best characters. We will remember the late great actress with the top 5 in a couple of weeks. And also later, we'll share some of our programming plans for 2026. In other words, year 2 of explaining what the Pantheon Project is. Josh, I'll have a PowerPoint.
Do you have it down to an elevator pitch yet? We should be at that point by now.
A quick reminder, Filmspotting is now available as a video podcast. If you're a Spotify listener, you can toggle between video and audio. You can also watch the show on YouTube, and you can do that by going to youtube.com/filmspotting or going to filmspotting.net/episodes. First up, it is our 2026 movie preview, and it is taking the form, as it did last year, of a draft. Why are we doing it that way? Well, we want to get in 10 titles. So instead of doing the usual Filmspotting top 5, we are going to share the top 10 most anticipated movies of 2026. And this way, we are going to get 10 unique titles. It's basically just a conceit so that one of us can't pick the same title. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. To spread the wealth a little bit and to probably talk a little bit about more movies that are guaranteed to come out, that are a little more anticipated. We've had a past history of maybe picks, trying to get too creative with our top 5s, and then maybe 2 titles on our list didn't end up getting a release in that year anyway. So hopefully we're a little bit more in line with what will actually happen in 2026. I don't know, Adam, if you looked back at last year's list and draft and how it ended up.
We did
It was it went well. I love how it worked, but also it was interesting because we each, in a couple of cases, ended up liking the other person's pick a little bit more.
That's true. Yes.
Than they did. So I think of 2 in particular here. Sinners.
I had Frankenstein, maybe?
The one you had was Kelly Reichardt's The Mastermind.
Oh, yes.
You drafted that.
Yes.
I ended up liking a lot more than you. Sinners, I drafted.
Right.
You ended up liking a lot more than me, and there were a couple of more like that. So who knows if this will hold, but that was a little quirk that happened last year.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe you just beat me to Sinners. We'll see how this draft goes. A couple of notes. We have in the past and it really was, I just think, out of habit, and we never readdressed it. We've usually stopped our preview options at Thanksgiving. And that was because for the longest time here on Filmspotting, we would do a fall movie preview, and we would also do sometimes a holiday movie preview. I don't remember the last time we did a holiday movie preview, and it's been quite some time since we've done a fall movie preview. So there's really no reason to stop at Thanksgiving. Let's go ahead and include the entire year. So yeah, Josh, you can pick Dune 3 if you would like. It's on the table. I think that's a December
I'm glad
release.
We made that decision, especially because I had pretty much already made my draft board by the time that we had kind of brought that up. So yeah, it works out just fine for me. We'll see how many of those late in the year movies both of us end up picking, but they are eligible.
We didn't talk about this, but we have both tried to stick very close to this in the past. And last year, we definitely did. We were very good about it. We only had one movie that didn't come out last year, and that was The Bride. And I think we had very good reason to think The Bride was going to come out last year. We tried to stick to titles that have a release date set. I'll maybe throw in, we need a very strong indicator of a 2026 release if it doesn't have a specific date, but we're not going to go with movies that, you know, it filmed in 2025, so it may come out in 2026. Right. There are lots of previews that have those kind of titles. We just don't think that's as fun. We want these to be movies that we really, truly do think or know for sure are going to come out this year. Sound right, Josh?
Yeah, I thought about it that way. And man, just looking at those titles alone that were pretty committed to a 2026 likely release date, I think it's going to be a great year. Honestly, like more promising than the last couple of years for me, at least, even though last year ended up being a great movie year. I also think there's plenty to go around. I don't know that we're going to be fighting over a ton of titles. We'll see how this goes. There's a way this might work out where we both go away pretty happy.
I think that's
we'll
true.
see what happens. And I do want to note quickly here that I relied on two sources to help me put together my list. So David Hudson for the Criterion Collection's daily film blog, his preview was really good and in-depth. And then our friend Brian Tallerico in Chicago, RogerEbert.com, did a great preview too. So I'll link to both of those in the show notes. They were helpful to me. And if folks want to go through those on their own, they'll be able to find them in the show notes.
I did look at both of those. I probably referenced a little more or leaned a little more heavily on the IndieWire list of most anticipated movies. I think 40 titles. So I'll link to that one as well. I am maybe not quite as optimistic as you based on this preview, Josh. Certainly not as optimistic as last year, looking back on the titles and knowing how the year played out, but also at the time looking at my draft board and knowing how excited I felt. I have a top 5 that I feel great about. And then after that, the order could kind of, it doesn't really matter. It really could go any which way after that. And there are 2 movies that would definitely make my top 10 if I felt more confident about them being 2026 releases, but I didn't feel like in good conscience I could leave them on or put them on my draft board. So we'll see. I think they do appear on various previews, though. Maybe they'll come up on your list. I left them off. I will certainly mention those titles if they do not come up over the course of this draft.
All you need with this conceit, Adam, is 5. So if you get your 5, if I don't steal any of them, you'll come away happy.
That's true. I think there is, I will say this, there's one title, there are 2 titles. There are 2 titles where I think there is potential for crossover, real strong crossover that would affect my draft order. That's what I'll say.
Gotcha.
And maybe 3 when you consider my number 1 choice, because surely you would pick this, and I am going first. There's no other scientific reason here other than last year was the first time we did this, and Josh went first. I'm going to go first this year.
Fair enough.
Okay. And with that first pick, I am going to take the movie we referenced in the open of the show. It is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, the movie event of the year. Maybe other people have joked about this. Do we have another title? I mean, Gerwig's got another movie coming out. Are we gonna merge these two movies together in some way? How do we make this into an event again, a Barbenheimer type event? Maybe we don't need it because The Odyssey certainly has enough hype behind it already. The fact that it's Nolan's new movie is enough. The cast certainly is loaded with Matt Damon and Zendaya and Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway and Mia Goth and Charlize Theron and Robert Pattinson and John Bernthal. The story is, well, it's literally an epic, Josh. It's the epic. And it's funny because today I've had two different voices in my ear. I've had Filmspotting PA Sophie Kempenaar, who has spent a lot of time academically studying The Odyssey, telling me that apparently there's been a lot of, in her words, exhausting discourse about the historical accuracy of this story already, especially the costuming, which she finds a little annoying. I've managed to avoid that. I'm going to continue to try to avoid that over the next 7 months. But she did say this, and I'm going to throw this out there because I think it's hilarious, even though I do not understand it. This is a case of me being an old who doesn't know what this means exactly. And I'm going to have to ask her off air at some point what this means, but I still think it's funny. She says, the only criticism in this strain I'll tentatively accept is that Tom Holland has iPhone face.
iPhone face. I may have it myself, Adam, have not been diagnosed, wouldn't know
Sure.
if I'm afflicted.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know if this is surely a thing. I doubt my daughter came up with this completely on her own, but I will have to check in with her on that. She told me that this today, and then earlier this same day, our producer, Sam Van Halgren, sent out the Filmspotting newsletter in which he expressed some apprehension about this movie. He's apparently read the Odyssey more times in the past month or so than I have in my entire life.
I think it's a Christmas tradition for Sam.
I guess so. I haven't read the Odyssey since I was assigned to read the Odyssey back in college, Intro to Humanities with Ed Moore. It's been a long time, Josh. Had to write an essay, at least one, about it. Yeah, pretty great. Spent a few times thinking about it here and there. I've certainly referenced it over the years here and there. Otherwise, has not been a huge part of my thinking. But I know the story. I love the story. I'm a Nolan fan. Nolan is one of those filmmakers like Paul Thomas Anderson for me, who we spent some time talking about in some upcoming bonus content and who we're going to talk about soon as we revisit One Battle After Another, who hasn't really made a bad film. The only film I've given a negative review to was Tenet, and I'm quite certain I just probably didn't get Tenet and look forward to revisiting that movie. So The Odyssey has to be my number one. The way I thought about this, the last thing I'll say is I applied those sort of incinerator rules that we like to do here on the show. And I thought about it, my draft board, in terms of the multiplex. All these movies are playing, but you can only go to one. You can only see one of them. And all the other movies, they disappear after that. You'll never see them. What's the theater I'm walking into? Yeah, I'm walking into the Odyssey. If there's only one 2026 movie I can see, I'm going into Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. So it's my number one choice.
The only way this draft could have gone awry, I feel like, is if you had not taken The Odyssey at number one, Adam. And I thought you might. I'm glad you did. I'm very interested in it. How could I not be? It was not number one on my board, but it was actually number 4 on my board. So
no kidding.
I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Such I don't
have the same reservations as producer Sam. I'm glad you called out this newsletter, which is a doozy. I mean, this is a reason to become a Filmspotting family member, is to get Sam's weekly email newsletters, because in his writing about the Odyssey, I believe he took down Nolan's Batman movies and Inception in one paragraph.
That's right. He said, to be clear, he said Nolan's not a poet and this movie needs a poet. I didn't explain why. Yeah.
That's where I was going. Yeah.
Okay.
He was swinging for the fences with that paragraph, but I do think I'm intrigued by his poet thesis.
I am too.
again, we'll save that for those who get the Filmspotting newsletter. I do think Nolan needs to be reckoned with. That's why I've got this movie high up on my board. Yes, I was cooler than most on Oppenheimer, and I still need to give Tenet a second chance to see what the heck was going on there. But in some ways, Adam, the reason why I'm so excited about The Odyssey is because it reminds me of Dunkirk. And I remember being a bit unenthused with the idea of Nolan taking on something as familiar as a war movie. To my mind, he was more original than that, right? Why are you doing a war movie? That's not what we expect from Christopher Nolan. Well, guess what? Dunkirk remains my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. So what do I know? So yeah, maybe still part of me wishes he would give us an original story and Inception. I disagree with Sam on that. An original story rather than this, 2,700-year-old one. But I have now learned he can do wonders with familiar material. So I am also no Sam in that I read The Odyssey annually, but I did reread it last fall because, as you said, Adam, it'd been since college that I first read it, and just thought, what better opportunity to revisit it than knowing that Nolan's coming out with this movie? And yeah, it's an irresistible yarn. But you know what? Beyond that, and all the visual opportunity within this poem is this notion of separated familial love, very much Nolan territory, I think. So I do think Sam's onto something in this notion of, is Nolan a poet, and do you need a poetic filmmaker to adapt The Odyssey, or is he maybe going to do something different with it that will stun us all? We will find out, as you said, on July 17. Cannot wait to see The Odyssey. But the one I wanted, Adam, the one I had to have, and I thought, given that Nolan was on the board, you might let me have, because I'm sure you're interested in this as well, is Disclosure Day. Spielberg, Aliens, and are you kidding me? Josh O'Connor is in this. I didn't realize this, Adam, until I started researching for this show. I'd heard about Disclosure, I think, when an early trailer went out. And, as you know, for something like this, I would never watch the trailer. So I had no idea he was in it, and then did the research just reading about it. Okay. So probably my favorite working actor right now is starring in a new Steven Spielberg Alien movie. I'm sorry. I need to have it. Alien Spielberg is my favorite Spielberg. I think it's the best Spielberg. E.T., AI,
Close Encounters.
Not
War of the Worlds.
Good, really good film. Really good film. Not as high as those. It's been a while, and so I don't feel like this is, just falling back on familiar tropes. I hope not. I'm excited about him revisiting this sort of notion. I did find out the cast also includes Emily Blunt, Colin Firth, Eve Hewson, Coleman Domingo. That's all I know about Disclosure Day, and it's all I want to know. So if you want to know more, you're going to have to find it from someone else. But I'm going to take it at number one. Another reason, and I don't want to set myself up here by even saying this, but just to explain why I chose it over Nolan, and at the top here is I have submitted my dissertation proposal for my master's, the theology and the arts master's I'm working on, and it may just involve Spielberg. I have not heard back on the response to that proposal, so I hope I'm not ruining it by mentioning that here, but it would be pretty cool to be working on that while Spielberg has a new movie out that, as an Alien movie, would very much be in line with what I'm thinking about for the dissertation. So cannot wait for Disclosure Day. And it's coming on June 12th.
People have a right to know the truth. It belongs to 7 billion people.
What is it?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you. So I'm gonna show you.
You're always trying to hit two birds with one stone, Josh.
It's the only way to live.
It is. Fair enough. Well, just like with The Odyssey, my number one pick, lower on your list, Disclosure Day, I had it number 6 on my draft board.
6. Oh,
yeah. I had it number 6. Now,
that just means it's a great year. It's a great potential year.
I suppose. I could make the case that it should be 3 picks higher, but I wouldn't put it any higher than that. And yeah, I I am a Spielberg fan. I am a fan of all of those movies you mentioned, other than War of the Worlds, which I've only seen once back when it was reviewed on the show. I think the first year of the show, and both Sam Van Hater and I were haters of that film at the time. Who knows how I would feel about it now if I saw it 20 years later. But Disclosure Day, I watched a little bit of the trailer today because it's one of the few films on my list that actually has a trailer out, and I just wanted to get a taste of the movie. And I didn't need to see Josh O'Connor in the trailer, but seeing him in the cast list and seeing a little bit of him in the trailer and getting the sense, because it's a little bit enigmatic. The trailer is certainly not giving a lot away. It's trying to play it pretty loose. You get the sense that he might be, I don't know what his actual role or title as a character in the movie is, what his profession is, but he seems like a character who might be the shepherd, Josh. He might be sort of the voice of reason for humanity, who's trying to lead at least some group of people. And after our last show, where we went pretty deep on Wake Up Dead Man, and we talked about how much we loved that movie and his performance, Josh O'Connor's is the right man for that job.
Yeah. Might be able to pull that off.
I am eager to see that movie, but I do have some titles ahead of it. Here's where we'll see if I'm right and whether or not it's necessary, but here's where a little bit of gamesmanship comes into play. It's not actually number 2 on my draft board, but I am going to take it here because I think this is a movie you have higher on your draft board. And if there was going to be a possibility for Barbenheimer, I am making it so, because I am pairing Nolan and Greta Gerwig.
Wow.
I am taking Narnia, The Magician's Nephew, expected November 26th. Daniel Craig, Emma Mackey, Carey Mulligan. It is a case, Josh. Well, I said I haven't seen or read The Odyssey since I was in college. I'm pretty sure freshman year. I haven't consumed any type of Lion, Witch, Wardrobe, Narnia series, anything in any form, since a 3rd grade teacher who I despised read it to us in class.
Wait a minute. Why did
That's
you
the last
despise
time.
her? I've got to get the background here.
It's a long story, but I wasn't the only one. I'll say that. I'll
Okay.
just leave it there for now. She wasn't a great teacher, but it was read to us in class, and I liked it. I remember really liking The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at the time, and I have certainly read other C.S. Lewis since. But in terms of fantasy, this is much more your genre. This is your realm than it is mine. And on its own, even with Carey Mulligan and Emma Mackey and Daniel Craig, I would not be interested in this movie. But Greta Gerwig is one of my top 2 or 3 favorite working filmmakers. And she alone is enough to make me very excited to go see it. And I know this will probably make no sense. It probably is something I shouldn't say, because I hadn't read Little Women either. But it was still, and I did talk about this during the review, and you, as someone who has read it, you did confirm some of this. It was very clear, even as someone who hasn't read it but is familiar enough with it, it was very clear from watching it that she was taking liberties with the text, that she was doing some different things in terms of the structure with the material, the structure of the material. And without knowing anything about The Magician's Nephew, I will be eager to see what Greta Gerwig does with this material. Not in terms of, again, apples to apples comparison to the page, not in terms of that type of adaptation, but how Greta Gerwig makes it her own, how this film fits into the Greta Gerwig canon, along with Barbie and Lady Bird and Little Women. That's what I'll be curious about, how she takes this IP and makes it personal, and makes it at the same time personal and universal, the way she is so successfully done with those other films. That that's what's drawing me in. Greta Gerwig alone is enough. It honestly, Josh, it doesn't matter. It does not matter what the title is. It doesn't matter who the cast is. It doesn't matter what the plot description is. If Greta Gerwig is the director, it's going to be in the top 3 on my draft board. And that's why I am taking Narnia, the Magician's Nephew, with my number 2 pick. It's expected November 26th, so right around Thanksgiving.
Your heart had to drop a bit, though, Adam, when you heard this was going to be her next project, just because it is IP and it's fantasy, and fantasy is you're open to it and have appreciated fantasy, but it's not your favorite genre.
No.
Yeah, and it's almost so strange of a choice that's part of the attraction for me as well. You know, I similarly think Gerwig is among our top filmmakers at the moment, but this was a surprise choice to follow up Barbie with. And yeah, you may have mentioned some of this, but The Magician's Nephew, I had to be reminded, this is so published as the 6th volume in the 7-book Narnia series, but is actually a prequel.
It's a prequel
to the first. Yeah, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is, of course, the best known Narnia novel. You know, I had the set on my childhood bookshelf, like all growing up. Right. That being said, I don't know that I made it all the way to The Magician's Nephew. I might not have. I was more of, you know, C.S. Lewis's fellow inkling, J.R.R. Tolkien. That was my obsession. The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, those are the ones I read very early and repeatedly. They just really grabbed me in a way that the Narnia stories have grabbed others. That said, I was a big fan of the 2005 live action adaptation of Narnia. That was a series that had diminishing returns. They ended up never completing it. So we'll see where Gerwig goes here with these, the first of 2 films, right? That's going to be Netflix productions. Apparently it will be in theaters. However, IMAX screens, no less. So to see what Gerwig does with that sort of visual scale will be interesting, even though Barbie was essentially, you know, a widescreen classic Hollywood musical in many respects. So I think she's shown she has those chops. But yeah, how bizarre when I pulled this up, because it was high on my draft board, gathering the details. And you just saw, you know, on IMDb, how the first thing you see is like director, and then you see writers, and it says Greta Gerwig, comma, C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
it's like, I, you know, wouldn't have predicted that around the time of Frances Ha, but here we are, and I'm eager for it. You did help solve my draft board a little bit, Adam, because as we were talking here, and even as I had them laid out, for me, it was going to be either, as my next pick, Narnia or The Bride.
Mm-hmm.
And The Bride was, let's see, last year, I think I picked it at number 5. We pulled some pairing shenanigans. I think you had a pairing, and my pairing was The Bride with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein in last year's draft. Del Toro came through, for me at least, with his rapturously romantic version of the Mary Shelley horror story. So now I'm counting on Maggie Gyllenhaal. And I feel pretty good about it because she's following up her incredibly impressive directorial debut, The Lost Daughter. If people haven't caught up with that, it was a smaller film, starred Olivia Colman. It is worth tracking down. But here we have, you know, The Bride, something incredibly different. She's inspired by not only Shelley, but the James Whale 1935 film, Bride of Frankenstein, which I love. Apparently this is set in 1930s Chicago, which I don't think I knew last year.
I just saw that in a trailer that came on TV.
What happened?
You had an accident.
An accident, huh?
We dug you up, and we brought you back to life.
Get on stage.
I'm still not sure if I'm more or less excited about that fact.
Right.
But it's curious to say nothing else. And Jessie Buckley, who after Hamnet, I'm riding the Jessie Buckley high, and she's the bride. Christian Bale's the monster. Peter Sarsgaard, Annette Bening, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Penelope Cruz also in it. And it's right around the corner, March 6th. So I will take The Bride with my number 2 pick.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to be your next pick. I had it at number 5 on my list. And if somehow it wasn't your next pick, I actually was probably going to make it my next choice, even though I have my number 2 and my number 4 still available, just because I thought, well, I know he's going to go with The Bride ahead of these two. And now I don't know what to do, because I think it's possible, even though obviously these are my next 2 picks. I'm not sure which one you care about more. And the fact is, I don't know that you care about either of them that much at all.
I think it's possible.
I think it's very possible they're not on your draft board, or they're very low. So I'm faced with a conundrum. And when I am in this situation, I am going to default to my draft board. And I am going to go with the movie I had at number 2, getting with the 5th overall pick. Look, when Christopher Nolan has a new movie coming out, you go see that movie. Greta Gerwig has a new movie coming out, you go see that movie. You know who else fits that bill, Josh? For me, David Fincher. And David Fincher has a new film coming out this summer called The Adventures of Cliff Booth. Now, we're talking a bit about surprising material. I did not have on my bingo card David Fincher directing a movie about the character Brad Pitt played in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, written by Quentin Tarantino, in a sequel essentially to that movie, showcasing more of his backstory. No, had no vision for that, but apparently David Fincher does, because that is the film. And I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I really liked that performance by Brad Pitt, and that character was one of those mesmerizing characters that you saw, and you knew he was the supporting character in the film to DiCaprio's character. And yet, I think most people watching that film, and this is no slight on DiCaprio at all, it just speaks to the strength of Cliff Booth as a character, as he's written, but also Pitt's performance, that most people probably walked out of that film and thought, I would really like to know more about Cliff Booth. I would like to spend more time on screen with Cliff Booth. And here we are, getting more of Cliff Booth. So with that in mind, just the fact that it's Tarantino making or writing another script about him, but the fact that David Fincher is on board, lock for me, one of my most excited films of the year.
Your instinct was right. And my guess that we might both come away happy, I think, is starting to come to fruition here. I'm intrigued as well. Number 20 on my board. And,
oh my God.
And really, that's not a slight. It's just, I think there's a lot of good potential stuff. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood I was a huge fan of, and I have a tortured relationship with Tarantino. So I think that's a great film. Agree with you about the performance and the character. I've just got some other stuff I'm ready for before I get to that one. And way ahead of it is a movie called Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. I mean, the title alone, Adam, my book on horror films, fear not, I have a chapter titled Sex and Death. So this is already something I'm immediately curious about. But more importantly, it comes from Jane Schoenbrunn of We're All Going to the World's Fair, of I Saw the TV Glow, World's Fair, a Golden Brick nominee here on the show, and TV Glow, a top 10 lister for me when that came out. That Criterion preview that I mentioned by David Hudson, he had a quote from Schoenbrunn about the movie. This is what they said: "My best attempt at the sleepover classic, an insane yet cozy midnight odyssey that beckons to unsuspecting viewers from the horror section at the local video store." I don't know why, but maybe it makes me think maybe this will be a little bit more fun than Schoenbrunn's first 2 films. Not that they didn't have their elements of comedy and levity, but it sounds like they might be having a little bit of, I don't know, just a lighter touch on this one. We'll see. Either way, I'm in. Can't wait to find out. This is one of those that doesn't have a set date, but the way it's talked about in these previews is it's pretty much ready to go. It's more a sense of strategy of best time of release than that it will be held until the following year. So that's my third pick, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma.
Okay, so I was afraid that this would happen. It turns out that it worked out okay, but I was afraid that Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma was going to be on your list when I left it off my draft board because of the release date issue. I know that Brian Tallerico, who we love and respect, on the Roger Ebert preview said, I think his words were, no date, but a 2026 release feels almost certain. I trust you, Brian, but I looked at a lot of other previews and a lot of other places, and I couldn't find that anywhere else. I kept finding things that suggested 2027 was still possible. It just didn't feel conclusive enough to me, Josh, to include it. Okay. And I thought, oh, what if Josh does? And what if he takes it where I might have taken it? My whole draft is going to be shot. Where it worked out okay is that I would not have taken it. I actually would have had it 6th on my draft board. And that means
so either way, you're good.
I wouldn't have taken it in this slot. So if it was down lower and you took it, then we'd have issues. But the fact that you took it here when you did means I can't really complain about it. And I'm glad that it was mentioned here on the show because, yes, Jane Schoenbrunn, they're a filmmaker that we have praised a lot on this show. And just honestly, that's a case where I was talking about Gerwig and being the director, her name being something that is enough to sell me on a film. That's true of Schoenbrunn as well to some extent, but in this case, it's the title of the movie. Just give me the title of the movie, and I'm going to be so curious to see what that film is about. But the meta levels that Schoenbrunn works on, that's really what fascinates me so much as a film fan and as a critic. That does mean that my number 4 pick is available, and I don't know where this will be on your draft board. It's possible here that it's your next choice. It's also possible that you have it at number 28, Josh, because I don't think you care about this director at all. I don't think you care about this director that much as a writer at all, but I do think, like most of the world, you appreciate the first film that was the predecessor to this movie, and it's a pretty landmark movie. And I can't imagine not being curious about The Social Reckoning, following The Social Network. That is my choice here at number 7, which is expected to come out October 9th. Aaron Sorkin, we were talking about David Fincher just a bit ago with my last choice. David Fincher is not directing The Social Reckoning. Aaron Sorkin, the writer of The Social Network, is directing The Social Reckoning. And the cast includes Jeremy Allen White, Mikey Madison. Okay, those two alone. Betty Gilpin also, but Jeremy Allen White, Mikey Madison, those two alone should help sell you on the movie. Jeremy Strong, very good as well. But after all of our praise this past year in Sinners for Wunmi Mosaku, that's another big sell for The Social Reckoning. The plot line here, I'll give it to you as I have it copied down. It follows Francis Hogg, and a young Facebook engineer who enlisted the help of Jeff Horowitz, a Wall Street Journal reporter, to blow the whistle on the social network's most guarded secrets. Look, I've said this many times. I did not expect The Social Network to be the incredible film, to be the masterpiece that it is, and I believe it is after revisiting that movie a few years back. The Social Reckoning, another Facebook movie. Is this what we need? Well, it turns out we do, Josh. It turns out there's still a lot to say about the impact that these social networks have had for good and for ill, and probably mostly for ill, on our culture. So that matters. That is part of my thinking, but also, even though Sorkin as a writer and as a director can be a little hit or miss, I put him way more in the hit category as far as being that type of writer who makes me want to go to the theater and hear that patter, hear that type of intelligent dialogue, hear actors bounce that dialogue off each other and banter in that intelligent way that his characters do. I'm always, or I imagine myself always being drawn to the types of scripts that Aaron Sorkin produces. So for me, The Social Reckoning is a no-brainer 2026 movie I can't wait to see.
Not on my board, but again,
there you go.
It's what you said about, my attitude towards Sorkin and even the original is correct. It's not like I'm dreading it or anything. And also, to be fair, I have not revisited, I think I've said it on the show, The Social Network, maybe since it came out. I would love to do that at some point in some form, whether it's a Sacred Cow anniversary or something, because I'm fairly certain I did underrate that. Though I remember one reservation being, I went into it thinking it would be about social networking, and it was much more of a character portrait that was involved in that milieu and background, of course. So to expect a statement about the state of social media now from a follow-up from Sorkin, I'm a little hesitant about that, which is the only reason. I mean, that cast sounds great, so that's intriguing, but it's probably why it's not as high for me. But yeah, who knows? Maybe it will be something that captures what I agree with you. We need a lot of really smart movies about at this point to really take on that reckoning, which is deserved. So,
I'll also just say, Josh, to be clear though, I'll be fine if the movie's about most of the same things that The Social Network is about, which are human, fundamental human things like ambition and greed and ego. That's okay with me too. And I'm imagining that the movie is going to be about those things in addition to the other things. I do think the title suggests that it is going to reckon with, almost surely.
Yeah, it does suggest it. All right, so that means I've got a little flexibility here. And I might jump around in my draft order and start going for things I think you could grab, especially at this later date in the draft. Here's a filmmaker I know you appreciate and are very familiar with because of an early film spotting marathon. I am going to take the new film from Pedro Almodovar, Bitter Christmas. And Almodovar, really a living legend at this point, but I would argue still vital. I mean, Pain and Glory 2019 made my top 10 list that year, not that long ago. And since then, I did like Parallel Mothers quite a bit. I was mixed on The Room Next Door. That was the one, the most recent film of his with Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton. But, it showed him trying something new still. English language production there, and intriguing movie in many ways. Just to my mind, not quite as good as Almodovar at his height. This new one, Bitter Christmas, follows a workaholic advertising director who tries to reboot by taking a trip with a friend. Meanwhile, her partner, a filmmaker, begins writing a screenplay based on her life. So you have this, this idea that for some reason I'm not always keen to, but I love the way Almodovar handles art reflecting life and artists reflecting their own lives, and then how he processes it as a writer and a director. As we said at the top of the show, Adam, I'm in Spain right now and had a chance in Madrid to meet up with a listener, Alex Garcia. So glad that he reached out and said he was available. We hung out, had some beers, talked a lot about Spanish film, and he said this about Almodovar, about his early films in particular being very political. And that's something, I can grasp, but don't have a full knowledge of, because the first Almodovar, the earliest Almodovar I've seen is 1998's Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. So I don't have that context. That was fascinating to hear. Just made me more excited about him as a filmmaker and his entire output, and as someone who is, as I said, still vital. So I'm very much looking forward to Bitter Christmas. Pretty confident this will get a release because it opens March 20 here in Spain and will roll out internationally after that. So going with Bitter Christmas for pick number 4.
Yes. Good choice. Smart choice, because I'm pretty easy to figure out. I tend to be I am director driven, and Almodovar is one of those heavyweights that I am a fan of. I had him at number 10. I had Bitter Christmas at number 10 on my list, but I also at this point am darting around a little bit, Josh, and I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to go. Well, I think I'm going to take that back because I only have one pick left. And at this point, my first 6 picks are off the board, but my number 7 pick is not off the board. And I'm going to take it here. I'm going to take David Lowery's Mother Mary with my final pick. Another director-driven choice, I suppose, in David Lowery. Certainly has had some films that have gotten very high praise here on the show, has made some other films that haven't gotten as much high praise, but I think a very interesting filmmaker. And the cast, I'm looking at the names, Michaela Cole, Hunter Schafer. I'm not familiar with them, or at least I don't know if I'm familiar with them, if I've seen them in other films. But Anne Hathaway not only is obviously a very talented actress, but she's a force when it comes to performances that involve music. Any kind of musical performance, singing, and she is playing here a pop star. It says in the description she's playing an iconic pop star who has long buried wounds that rise to the surface. She's called Mother Mary, and they rise to the surface when she reunites with her estranged best friend and her former costume designer as she's mounting a comeback performance.
I hadn't seen her in over 10 years. But I could tell she was coming from 1,000 miles away. Why don't you start with why you're here?
Sam, I need a dress.
This is one, I think this is what cemented it for me, Josh, is we both try to avoid trailers as much as we can, but I usually do skip that policy when it comes to previews because we don't have much to go on at all. So why not watch the trailer and at least have something to reference while we're talking about these films? Most often there isn't even a teaser out for a lot of these films, so it's irrelevant. But this is one where there is. And I started to watch it, Josh, and about 10, 15 seconds in, I stopped watching. I stopped watching because it was one I knew I did not want to know anything more about. It just felt, from watching the few seconds that I did, from knowing it's Lowery, from that plot description, from knowing Anne Hathaway, it felt mysterious enough that I wanted to just retain all of that mystery. I wanted to go into this without knowing anything more. I wanted to be taken on the ride of this movie. It sounds like it's going to be a little bit insane, and I am here for it. I'm ready for that. And I'm ready for Hathaway to be that force, that powerful force as a performer. And when I say that, obviously she's a powerful force in The Devil Wears Prada. She probably will be that in The Devil Wears Prada too. But you know what I mean when she is the character who is playing what's described as an iconic pop star, in which the entire orbit of the film revolves around her. And you see her wearing, even in publicity shots or in the beginning of the trailer, any footage you see, wearing those amazing costumes that she's wearing. There's a power there that I'm eager to see. And that's why Mother Mary is my last choice.
This one definitely on my board. I think it was an honorable mention for me in last year's draft. So yeah, had this one in consideration. Okay, my last pick. I mean, there's so many great potential movies on the board here, but I guess I've got to do the same as you and just rely on how I ranked these going in. And
can I make the pick for you? I know what it is. How can you not make this choice, Josh?
Okay, yeah, I'd love this. I'd love to hear this.
Expected December 25th. You're not picking Werewolf?
Werewolf.
Robert Eggers?
Number 11 on my board. And here's the thing with me and Eggers, okay. Adam, is like, it's curious because everything he's done is a must see to me because I'm so intrigued by the ideas and how he's approaching them. Aside from The Witch, I haven't really gone over the moon for an Eggers movie. I've kind of appreciated all of them while having some reservations. The Witch, I think, is like crystallizes what he might do and his interests, and is digging into some of the most provocative ideas of anything. So Werewolf, I had a little bit lower down because I'm absolutely going to see it. But I just had others ahead of me. And while we're on the topic, we should just, listeners probably know, but yeah, tackled Dracula. Now he's on to that other great legend. And with a lot of the Nosferatu cast, speaking of tackling Dracula, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Lily Rose Depp, and Willem Dafoe all back for this. So I get why you went there. I'm going a different direction with my final pick. Didn't know this movie even existed until started preparing. Ray Gunn. Ray Gunn. 2 words. Okay. Ray.
Yeah.
Gunn. Brad Bird. Returning to original animation after 2018's The Incredibles 2. And, you know, before The Incredibles 2, he had made the live action films Tomorrowland and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. So he'd been on an animation break. But of course, earlier in his career, Brad Bird, Ratatouille, Incredibles, Iron Giant. So we have one of the premier animators of the last 25 years with a new feature, and that is exciting stuff. You'll let this one slide, I hope, because it probably wasn't on your board, Adam. Supposed to premiere on Netflix sometime in 2026. Again, the previews I saw talked about it as a pretty sure thing. And just in terms of the story, basically follows the last human private detective in a futuristic world with aliens. I love all that stuff, but I don't need all that stuff. I just need to know it's Brad Bird returning to animation with an original idea, right? This was something, apparently, I think, an idea he's had for a long time. He wrote this alongside Matthew Robbins. And if you look up Matthew Robbins' credits, he's done a lot of work with Guillermo del Toro that I've liked. So I think I'm going to stick with my board order here and go with Ray Gunn as my last pick.
I think that's a great choice. I'm a fan of Brad Bird as well. And you're right. I didn't see that one somehow, even though I am now in my quick Googling, I'm seeing enough places referencing it as potentially a 2026 release that I think it's fair. I think it should be on our draft board. So Ray Gunn closing out our top 10 most anticipated movies of 2026. We would love to hear your picks. You can email us feedback@filmspotting.net. But Josh, I'm sure there are some more honorable mentions. If we had a few more rounds, what are some other titles that would have come up?
Yeah, and these are, I'm almost as equally excited as, you know, after Disclosure, which I took at number 1, and maybe The Bride. These could all be, and of course the ones you stole, these could all be right in the mix with the ones I did pick. But I Love Boosters is the new film from Boots Riley.
Boots Riley.
So, you know, I've been waiting a long time for his follow-up to Sorry to Bother You from 2018, and here it is. Cannot wait for that. May 22. I'll also mention The Land of Nod. I forget, Adam, if you're angrier at me for making you watch Skinamarink or if that's Debbie. Did you end up liking
it's
Skinamarink?
Debbie. I liked it well enough. Yeah, I think it's
well enough.
I mean, I think it's effective at what it's trying to do, for sure.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, the director of Skinamarink, Kyle Edward Ball, is back with another horror effort. This one set in a secluded town in northern Canada during a snowstorm. This one, I'm glad it didn't come up. There's no set date for The Land of Nod, but hopefully it'll be this year. And, you know, you mentioned it at the top. I had it on my board here at number 10, Dune Part 3. I'm a Dune appreciator. I like the movies more than you do, Adam. I'm not exactly an enthusiast. I still, for whatever reason, perverse reason, perhaps, maybe this one will put me over the top. Dune Part 3. I am excited about it. And then just because we mentioned it quickly here, Werewolf, I did have at number 11. So your instinct was not too far off.
If we were still doing the 2026 or the year preview as questions, there would have to be a question about aliens, something related to aliens, because not only do you have Disclosure Day, the first pick that you made from Steven Spielberg, but we have the Dog Stars. I'm going with aliens / creatures / sci-fi here, right? You've got the Dog Stars from Ridley Scott, which is a post-apocalyptic world, roaming scavengers called Reapers, and a protagonist named Hig, who's a pilot. You've also got The Great Beyond, which is retitled from Ghost Rider. J.J. Abrams is back.
I saw
Glenn
that.
Powell, Jenna Ortega, Samuel L. Jackson. This is a young newlywed couple struggling to survive against a supernatural entity. Okay. I did really like Super 8, and I've liked some other J.J. Abrams directed films, so I'm curious about that. Dune, I suppose, could fit into that as well. And I'm actually a little bit surprised. I don't know if this is, maybe I'm going too broad with my alien creature approach here, but just as its own title, I'm a little surprised this didn't get mentioned by you, Josh, considering the director. It fits with what I was saying about Greta Gerwig. Here is a series that I know zero about. Couldn't tell you the first thing, any of the characters, what happens in them, what the stories are, no idea. But what might actually get me to go to a Resident Evil movie this September is the fact that not only do I like Paul Walter Hauser, who's among the cast, but directing the new Resident Evil movie is Zach Cregger.
I know.
He of Weapons.
I
fame.
can tell you Resident Evil involves zombies. I can tell you that looking up quickly at my own Larson on Film archives, Resident Evil Extinction, I was a fan of. Apparently, this is the Mila Jovovich era of Resident Evil. Wasn't such a fan of the first Resident Evil in 2002. Resident Evil Apocalypse 2004. Nope, not a fan of that. See, this is a case, Adam, of like, you're absolutely right. If Zach Cregger had been doing an original film, possibly my first pick after Weapons, right? Or definitely in the top 5. But the IP is, it's just not doing it for me, even though it probably will do it for the box office, and more power to him. Then, he can go on and do whatever he wants after. And hey, maybe it'll be great. Anything can be great, Adam.
Anything can be great. That's Josh Larson's approach to life. It's so optimistic. I love it. Again, you can email us feedback@filmspotting.net. Tell us what we missed. Tell us what you can't wait to see. And you can view our draft results at any time by going to filmspotting.net/lists.
Let's take a moment to thank some of the Filmspotting family members who support the show and let us keep doing what we're doing. We want to thank Family Plus members Cameron Newton in Reno, Nevada, and Robert Duffin in Glasgow, Scotland, for their support of the show. Cameron is at Cam B. Newton on Letterboxd. And if you want to follow Robert, Robert's at R. Duffin. We got a few notes from Cameron here we want to share. He says, I've been listening to Filmspotting for over 5 years now, and I first discovered it after seeing and loving Marriage Story and searching for a discussion of that film in late 2019. I was in my first year of law school at the time, and I quite literally credit Filmspotting with saving my sanity. Law school was the toughest experience of my life, and I used movie-going paired with this podcast as an escapist outlet to get my mind off things and persevere through the schoolwork. The Filmspotting podcast became a regular companion on my head-clearing walks, gym outings, and drives around the country, and for the past 5 years, it has served as treasured listening, informing me of movies I've never heard of and provided me with insight and discussion that is smart and deep and good-natured. Here's to another 20 years of Filmspotting. I'm glad you made it through. I might not share that story with my daughter, my older daughter's probably going to be entering law school next fall. I don't think telling her to listen to Filmspotting is going to get her through it. So
no, probably
I'll
not.
try to think of something else. Robert, our other Family Plus member, turns out has been listening even longer. Here are a few comments from him. I was hunting for film podcasts post-Oscars ceremony after discovering the medium for the first time in 2006. My first Filmspotting listens, technically Cinecast, gulp, saying that made me feel like I'm on the beach from Old, were episodes 83 and 84. The Bruce Willis Mos Def starring 16 Blocks and Ozu's Floating Weeds, that was part of the Overlooked Auteurs Marathon. Whenever I hear the name of that Ozu film, I think of the show. I'm sure the same would be true for 16 Blocks, but no one ever talks about it.
No. It's true. I mean, Sam had to look it up. I do remember, I don't remember reviewing it, but it is one that I can clock in my memory that we did talk about. Sam had to go back and prove to himself that we talked about it. It was episode 83. It included also a 2006 Oscars postmortem. So yes, Sam saw it and he reviewed it. It's true.
On the record. All right, Cameron and Robert both have favorite or at least memorable episodes. Cameron, no film spotting episode has ever made me laugh harder than Josh describing his experience seeing The Woman King in one of those immersive theaters that sprayed him with water and shook his seat. Oh my God.
It was gold.
I repressed that. Thanks, Cameron, for bringing it back. In terms of more serious reviews, I love the Sacred Cow Godfather episode. All right, here's Robert's favorite, or at least memorable. This is not a favorite at all. But incredibly memorable. The argument between Adam and Sam about double indemnity. I vividly remember walking down Buchanan Street in Glasgow and having to take my headphones off to take a breath. It was like hearing my parents arguing. Absolute trauma. Also, despite being from the UK and having no clue about the cultural significance of March Madness, I love film spotting madness.
Yeah. You know, Josh, I was thinking, I don't know if you have a movie that comes to mind or if there is a case for you like this, but I'm sure others or many people listening have an example of this. Movies where you feel like they're special to you because you have an unlock. Take Shelter was one of those movies for me, right? Where once I had, for me, what I thought was a revelation about the ending. And in talking about it, I helped other people unlock what it potentially meant. That movie then became special to me. Double Indemnity. So that review was one where Sam had never seen it. It was part of that marathon, a noir marathon. I had seen it. And not only had I seen it, I think Double Indemnity was the first movie I ever unlocked. I ever felt like I unlocked for myself. I saw it in college. It was part of like a hard-boiled America class. It was an American studies class about hard-boiled fiction, but we watched movies too that were based on those stories. Like this one was based on James M. McCain. And I remember watching that movie for an essay I had to write and seeing things in that movie that I thought, no, I'm not seeing anybody talk about these things. I am seeing things that Billy Wilder is doing. I cannot wait to write these things down and share these brilliant insights with the world. And I was sure that Sam was also going to be wowed by all of my insights, only to find that he didn't like the movie.
He was.
I don't know that I handled it all that well, because that for me I think that was the first movie I truly felt like, I can't believe what I'm seeing in this film.
Yeah. Not only did he not like the movie, he didn't appreciate your insights.
Nope.
I mean, now that Cameron has brought it up, I think the only thing that has unlocked me is The Woman King, just shaking my brain in my head, the 40X. Yeah. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Can we move on to movies that Cameron and Robert credit with becoming cinephiles?
Sure.
Cameron, I watched Buster Keaton's Go West in a college film class and was mesmerized by the magic he was able to make almost a century ago. Totally makes sense, Cameron. And here's Robert. American Beauty. Could lie to avoid the awkwardness, and I haven't rewatched it, but it really was the one. You know what, Robert? No shame in that.
No shame.
I get it, even though, yeah, I mean, I had reservations about American Beauty at the time, but the filmmaking going on there, I get it. I can see how that can hook you on the medium for sure.
Robert, get a plastic bag tattoo. Go for it. It's fine.
I mean, Robert, don't go that far.
We thank Cameron and Robert for being family members and for all of those years of listening. In addition to keeping us doing what we're doing, membership does come with perks like listening early and ad-free, getting the weekly newsletter where Sam is dropping bombs all over the place, as Josh alluded to. You get exclusive opportunities like being part of the Filmspotting Family Discord, and you get monthly bonus shows. Speaking of Sam dropping bombs, just wait till you hear what he has to say about Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights.
Did not disappoint.
Oh, you think it's good? You think Boogie Nights is good? Just wait. That comes to the family feed on Monday, January 26th. And we still have a few weeks left here in the month of January. We are running a promotion where you can join the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com and get 20% off any membership tier, any subscription. Just go to filmspottingfamily.com and use promo code Supreme or click the link in the podcast description. We also encourage you to go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and help an independently produced show like ours by giving us a rating or review.
We travel the land. We search for souls to deliver to hell.
Are you going to leave?
Yes. But obviously we're going to kill you first.
Our man in Spain, Josh, will return shortly. I now get to welcome in Vulture critic Roxana Hadadi to the show. We're going to talk 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which is just fun to say. Welcome, Roxana. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's great to have you back here on Filmspotting. And yeah, Josh was angering me earlier by talking about how he was in Spain and it's so sunny and warm and beautiful. And where I am, it's 5 degrees, but it feels like minus 18. So I have that going for me. How are things where you're at?
I am outside Baltimore. It was like 16 degrees today. And then we're going into a potential 1 foot of snow, 1 feet of snow over the weekend. So also incredibly cold. Yeah, not great.
Well, let's hopefully move on to better topics.
Yes.
I don't know if they're warmer topics necessarily. Nothing with Jimmy Crystal can be too warm, but we will do our best. The Bone Temple picks up right where last year's 28 Years Later left off. The notable difference, Nia DaCosta takes over for Danny Boyle. DaCosta directed last year's Hedda, also The Marvels, and the 2021 Candyman remake. The screenplay is by Alex Garland, who wrote 28 Years Later and the original Days. Returning, Ray Fiennes, Dr. Kelson, and Alfie Williams, Spike, the kid hero of sorts of the previous film. New to this one, but memorably teased at the end of part 1 is Jack O'Connell's Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, the aforementioned Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. We can start really anywhere with this one, Roxana. I believe based on the tweet of yours that I saw that you do like The Bone Temple, and I will go ahead and say, I like The Bone Temple as well, though I'm not sure I like it quite as much as I liked 28 Years Later. Tell me what you thought.
I am nodding exuberantly because that's basically exactly where I am. And I was very, very doubtful of this entire project because a lot of Alex Garland's recent stuff has not been for me. I did not like Men. I did not like Civil War. I did not like Warfare. So I went into this whole enterprise very hesitantly. Let me put that completely honestly up front. But I was incredibly, shockingly, I guess, moved by 28 Years Later in both like a horror space and in a surprisingly emotionally affected space. And I found myself with Bone Temple more in that continuing emotion space, which I really liked. I think the characters are doing really interesting things in terms of the constant zombie question of like, are we actually the monsters? I do think there are interesting shades to that here. I do think that the movie has fun with itself, which is like not something we've gotten in this genre for a very long time at this point. But I feel like we lost some of the like deranged, unsettling, nightmarish visuals of the first 28 Years Later. And I found myself sort of missing the abruptness. Like when we would switch to night vision, I loved that. Or when we would do the bizarre like fisheye lens whip pans. I missed some of that. And I the first time I was watching 28 Years Later, I was like, what the hell is going on? And now I found myself wanting it again. So I liked Bone Temple a fair amount. I guess I miss Danny Boyle a little bit too.
Yeah, maybe I did as well, even though there are also touches here of Nia DaCosta's that I really appreciated. And I'm glad you also kind of put it in a little bit of perspective with Alex Garland. I hadn't really thought about his more recent fare, but even just going back a little bit in terms of some of his other work as a director and writer or just as a writer, I love Ex Machina, and I did like Annihilation quite a bit. And longtime listeners know I am way in the bag for Never Let Me Go. But yeah, I was really mixed on Civil War and mixed on Men. And I honestly didn't even see Warfare, kind of because of my feelings about those other two films. So I have mixed feelings, I suppose, overall on Alex Garland's work. But I do love what he's done with this series so far and where it seems to be going. And the ideas that he does seem to be exploring here. And this film is exploring exactly what 28 years later seemed to be suggesting it would, about, you said it very well and very succinctly, but about humanity and about humanity's capacity for inhumanity. And I like so many things about those ideas and also about what, as I mentioned, DaCosta's direction and some of the choices, even just at the very beginning, opening on Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, and we see just some of those choices with the visuals, the aerial shots, the kind of, you know, from God shots, or almost, I should say, maybe it's old Nick, it's more like Satan shots, even though they're aerial shots, or coming from through window shots. She has a very good eye, obviously, and so we get interesting perspectives, and I love as well when we see or we meet Samson again, and we get that. I didn't look up exactly what they're doing, but that effect that when they bring on or try to suggest his psychosis, if you will, or the rage, right? That shake cam look where we're attached to him as his head swivels, I think is really, really effective as well. But I do think the Bone Temple is burdened by its gateway role, advancing old threads and establishing new ones. Here again, though, DaCosta's direction and Garland's ideas and sharp character work keep it compelling. But what I mean by that, and part of it, I'll say the burden, I mean, is with the first movie, if you think about it, the actual distance traveled by the characters, if you think of the scale of it, it's not that big, right? But but it feels expansive. It feels like they travel far physically and emotionally. And on that front too, I'll say, I don't know, not only do we not maybe get, as you said, quite as much deranged, quite as much craziness with this one, we also, I don't know that we got anything quite on the level of the emotional heft, like the last 15 minutes of 28 years later. I don't think we get any moments here that match the power of some of those moments near the end of 28 years later. But also, in this movie, I was very aware of how they really don't go anywhere at all. Like, it seems like they just circle around Dr. Kelson's place, It just, you really do notice it. But I'll dig into this more a little bit later, but I want to throw it back to you. In terms of the narrative, though, when I said gateway, remember in the first one of the most memorable sequences in the film, the best action sequence was probably the causeway scene, right?
Yes.
The causeway was that link, the connector. That's kind of my metaphor for this film, where you think about it as the second film. It's the bridge, it's the causeway, and that's what I'm thinking about in terms of it's the causeway linking these two, and it is doing some good character work, but at the same time, I was very aware of how much work it had to do to juggle between Spike, but also Jimmy Crystal, and also Dr. Kelson, and then also introduce to us this wonderful character who we imagine is going to be a key part of the next film, which I want to make sure I get her name right, Erin Kellyman, who is one of Jimmy's fingers, Jimmy Inc. she's called. So I can explain a little bit more about why I think that wasn't quite as effective as maybe it needed to be for me. But that gateway aspect to this film, I think, was a burden for it.
Yeah, because the first one has this very clear, you're getting like a 3-decade reset. We're basically walking through what happened in 28 weeks later. We're sort of gesturing to it a little bit, but don't worry, now everything's contained again to England. And so I feel like it then had the opportunity to, of course, like introduce this community that happens to live at the end of the causeway. We can get a sense of what their rituals are, sort of what their culture is. There is this like old folk mythic sort of ideology that has taken hold. Again, something Garland is like very fascinated by. Men is like all about that, right?
Yes.
So you have this ability to create this community. I also, frankly, my frustration is almost that these movies have like too many interesting characters.
Yeah.
Because I sort of missed the Aaron Taylor Johnson character, who is so just contradictory in the first film. Everything about him is sort of a performance. He is just doing this. He's really doing the like keep calm to carry on British thing, like lying to his son, lying to himself. And I think like we got such a strong coming of age structure in that first film that in this second one, we're not really doing like a coming of age, but we're really shifting focus away from Spike toward Samson and Ian. And then to your point, like all of the Spike stuff feels lost in time. Like I have no clue how long they were wandering. We get the suggestion that like the Jimmies have been roaming the countryside for a number of years because we met Jimmy way, way, way back in the beginning of the first film. So we know he's been around for a long time. So I frankly was thinking, like, has he not seen the Bone Temple before? This gigantic artifact that we can see
that did
from
occur to
the
me
island?
as well. You know, it's pretty noticeable, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think it unfortunately, like, because we have to switch focus, because this movie is really like about Samson and Kelson and their relationship and this question again, like, what makes a person? Is it your memories? Is it your physical form? Like, what is it? So yeah, the Spike stuff becomes kind of muddled, which is unfortunate because I think Jack O'Connell is doing like exceptional villain work.
Of course,
but
he is.
It is a little bit like, has Spike been with them for weeks, days? Is it months? Like, I have no clue. I have no clue.
Yeah. Or maybe is what makes you human just the desire to occasionally take some drugs and chill out.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all it is, honestly.
Totally.
You know, peace and respite, as Dr. Kelson says, you know, and that might honestly be it. So, you know, what you're saying is exactly where I wanted to go. And keep in mind, I'm only somehow just now realizing that in this little breakdown that I've kind of jotted down in my notes, I hadn't even really accounted for Samson, and he's a fifth wheel. I mean, he's such a fascinating character, and he truly is, and I love the performance too here in the movie by Shai Lewis Perry. He adds just another complication to this. The best way I can break it down is that you have Spike, who is the series' main character. Clearly, he's the audience surrogate.
Sure.
But here he's by far the least interesting character in the movie. He's completely sidelined from the action. And that's the action overall, but also in the biggest action set pieces, if you will, he pretty much is a bystander. And poor Alfie Williams, who I think seems like a pretty talented actor, he's relegated to just looking terrified for 2 hours. That's pretty much all he gets to do.
He's really good at it. He's
really
good at it.
But that's all he gets to do. It's a very unfortunately one-note performance. The most interesting character, or I'm going to say now, I'll say characters. The most interesting characters who you kind of wish they had just made the entire series about are Kelson and Samson. And they're I'll now go back to just Kelson, played wonderfully by Fiennes. Naturally, of course, played wonderfully by Ralph Fiennes.
I've been developing an idea about the nature of the infection.
When the infected attack,
what do they see?
And although he does play a much more significant role here than Spike, he's still not really the character who it feels like the movie is most enamored with, because the character who gets most of the camera's attention, and I think you could say effectively bookends the movie, is Jack O'Connell's Jimmy Crystal. And I do really like, as you said, I really like what Jack O'Connell is doing as the villain. And I like the character. There is, like with most charismatic villains, he's fun to watch. He's kind of terrifying and fun to watch. And I understand his function in the narrative as this sort of paragon of incivility in contrast to the civility that Kelson and Spike and possibly even Samson represent. But he's also just Jimmy Crystal. He's the antagonist, right? He's not Spike ultimately.
Sure.
And then you add into that introducing, as I said, Jimmy Inc., introducing Kellyman as well. So there's just so much character work that has to be done here. And I don't think, I want to be clear, I don't think the problem here or the issue that's holding this film back just a little bit from being as strong as the previous film is that DaCosta or Garland are mishandling all of it, or that they don't know how to find the right balance. I just think, and I actually think that would derail lesser filmmakers. I just think it's an existential conundrum of the material as a stop along this longer journey. It actually just makes me more interested to see what the third film is going to be, quite honestly.
Yeah, and something that I think, like, if I'm getting galaxy brained, I wonder if the point of, well, not the point, but if perhaps like a way to read Spike being sidelined is we met Jimmy at the beginning of 28 years later, and then he was sidelined in the years that passed, right? And we got Spike's story. And so now it's almost like the inverse of that, where we're like backfilling in who Jimmy was. The suggestion, I think, is that Spike could have turned out a very different way, right? I mean, like the way Jimmy turned out was not that different, I think, from probably how a lot of people in this world dealt with what happened. So I think it's interesting that pretty much like all of these characters, with the exception, I mean, I was going to say with the exception of Samson, but maybe Samson is actually like the key to all of this. Just that all of these characters are really like versions of each other. Like Jamie and Jimmy are very similar. Jimmy as a child was very similar to Spike as a child. Like all of these characters are sort of maybe even interchangeable in a certain way. Yeah. And then all of them have the same, unfortunate human weakness that would allow them all to be infected. And so Samson also then becomes like, the central part of this like entire circle. And I will say it's really interesting to your point, like Spike is sort of just asked with being afraid. I do think that Alfie's standout scene is that opening pool, like hazing ritual. Like he does a very good job being scared and confused, and again serving as our surrogate to see like what is this cult all about. But all of that is to say that I think that Lewis Perry also, you could reduce what he's doing to that sort of like, well, he's just acting high. And I think you would really be missing a lot of like the really internal excellent work he's doing with a character who has 3 lines of dialogue, 4 lines of dialogue.
Yes.
Total.
No, I think I'm really glad you said that, because I do think it's a very nuanced performance. And I suppose we also, I don't know if we should be congratulating or praising the special effects workers on the film or the makeup people, but for the subtle changes in the red eyes changing to brown, because it's not dramatic, but you can just slightly notice those subtle changes in his physicality, in not just his actual physical demeanor, but in some of those augmentations to his body that reflect more humanity coming through. Those are really interesting, and they're there, and those nuances add to the nuances in his performance, but they're there in that performance. And you're right, it really is primarily a wordless performance. So I think it's a crucial part of the film. Something near the end that I thought I do think was a screenwriting issue, and it's significant, and because it's near the end, it would definitely qualify as a spoiler, but I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone who hasn't seen it, who's listening. And I also don't think it's a long enough conversation, or we need to go into enough detail that it requires a separate spoiler discussion. So I'm going to try to raise it without spoiling anything.
Okay.
And try to get your thoughts, and see if we can have the conversation vague enough without ruining it for anyone. And I'll frame it this way: in the showdown at the end, the finale we get at the end, there was a thought I had that involves Dr. Kelson, Ray Fiennes' character, where we're supposed to believe as viewers that he acts in a way out of a feeling of a threat, because there's a certain amount of leverage that another character is using against him. Okay. And the only problem with that for me, especially because of some events that transpire right before that, which I think we can go ahead and spoil. This isn't a spoiler. I'm going to go ahead and say it. We do on the show we just did last week here on Filmspotting, our best scenes of the year. We have a category that's our music moments of the year. I already have an early contender, especially as someone who around the age of 14 went through a brief but memorable, at least for me, not for the people around me, Iron Maiden phase.
Hell yeah.
You can bet that the number of the beast, the sequence involving theater guy Ray Fiennes putting on a show to that Iron Maiden song, that is going to make my list. That is quite the theatrical production within this cinematic production, right? To this song. So we're supposed to believe that he is putting on this entire show and acting a certain way out of a feeling of a threat. And at that point, my feeling as a viewer is, well, if he had just put all that energy into putting out the threat, which I think he's entirely capable of, we wouldn't need any of this happening at all. That was my reaction. Is that not a fair reaction?
I just think that goes entirely against who the second movie has shown Kelson to be.
That is valid. That is valid.
Yeah. Like, I think the person who has the leverage would respond absolutely in the way you suggested. But I think that if you're tracing Kelson's actions throughout the two films, I don't think he ever harms anyone who isn't infected. And I also don't think, I'd really have to go back and watch, but do you think that he kills an infected at any point?
It's a really good question that you're bringing it up. It makes me think that the answer almost certainly has to be that he is not willing even under the threat of his life to take someone else's life. And he's not willing to do it based on what we see in this film and in the previous film. He's not willing to do it without consent. And so that is crucial. I suppose if I really wanted to try to stick to my guns and be stubborn, and I'm not going to, but if I wanted to.
Why not? No, why not?
If I wanted to, I would say this is still the guy who has managed to survive, and even in this film has managed to survive this long against much bigger threats than the threat we're talking about. And he's found ways to survive, right? And to put out those threats without killing anyone else.
And I think this goes back to your point just generally about some of the struggles with a 28 years later sequel. Because I think we're seeing people within the franchise do something for the first time, and it's difficult for us to know if this is the first time it's ever happened or the first time we've ever seen it happen. Because I agree with you, in 28 years has Kelson never been found by a raiding party of evil people. The suggestion is that there have been evil raiders for the entirety of this time. I've watched enough Walking Dead to know they occur immediately. So,
and again, he's being pretty conspicuous.
So I feel like I'm giving probably Alex Garland the benefit of the doubt by being well, we haven't seen Kelson do this. But I think you're raising a good point that goes back to how far have these characters traveled? What are some of the other things that occurred in the 30 years on the mainland that we have no idea about? And the implication is that like all of the Jimmys stay with Sir Jimmy because the rest of the world is so terrible. And so I think
Right.
that's also, again, sort of like I'd love to see who those other really terrible people are
Yes.
to maybe
Yes.
understand how Kelson has survived all this time.
Well, if you were certainly looking to this film or any films these days or art in general to be speaking to our times, this is another movie that could speak to that. We're talking, of course, about humanity more broadly and how we treat each other, but also what is revealed ultimately. Not that we couldn't read into this, I think, very early on about what we know or what we think we know about who Jimmy is, but what is ultimately revealed is what we know about people like him throughout history and what they've always been like, right? And what people like his followers ultimately, what they need from leaders like that, what lost souls like that are looking for. Matters of truth and whether or not facts really matter or not, right? So much as how they feel about whatever they need from that person. That maybe I was actually going to say that trumps the facts, and no pun intended there. There are quite a few of those moments where you can have those connections, but
Yeah.
I wanted to say something else more about performance, actually, which is, I've already mentioned her name a few times. Erin Kellyman, something that struck me about her performance was she is like what she reminded me of in her moments where she, as one of those devout followers, something about that look on her face and what's so amazing about her character as she's written is that we see in her someone who is such a true believer. She might have an even higher calling than Jimmy, right? I'll just leave it at that. And so the look she has is familiar to me in the look you would see when you look at pictures or you look at old footage of one of Charlie Manson's followers.
Oh.
That's what she looks like. And that's,
Okay.
she has that same look of dogged devotion, right? But then you realize that, oh, this is like one of Charlie Manson's girls if she turned on Charlie, which is then this added layer of complexity to it, which is something that just really struck me about her character. So, there may be a lot of places you want to take this, but one thing I did want to ask you for sure was based on your tweet. You said something about your audience laughing at all the wrong moments, which is something that happens often. We always, sometimes we're watching a movie and for whatever reason we notice our audience seems to be reacting to things that are at odds with how we're feeling about a movie. What was the reaction? What was the disparity there for you, Roxana?
There were definitely some moments where they were laughing at the Samson Kelson stuff, but like the emotional Samson Kelson stuff. I
Yeah.
think someone laughed at the like staring up into the sky sequence, and I was like, I'm crying.
Yeah,
What
this is
happening?
legitimately emotional. What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yes. But then I think I laughed more at Jimmy than anybody else. So maybe I also was part of the problem.
Yeah, what is that? And I'm with you. So what does that say about us that we
I
found
know.
Jimmy humorous?
We're the perfect audience.
Yeah.
I do think that what is really interesting about what you said is before you said one of the Mansons, and we even get that with like the production design, right? Like there are a lot of upside down crosses.
And on her forehead, the scar.
Yeah, the Jimmys have them carved into their foreheads. Like, so
Yep.
there is, it's fun to think of this group like raiding malls to find their accessories. But before you said a Manson follower, I thought that she reminded me of like Wendy in Peter Pan. And
Yeah.
like this character who is sort of tasked, surrounded by lost boys, maybe a little bit more self-aware or mature or curious about the world. And
I
Jimmy
like
is
that.
like her Peter Pan. And I thought
Yes.
that was also sort of fascinating. This suggestion of like all of these, Jimmy, I think we're meant to believe is what, like mid-30s, right? He was like
Yeah.
8 or 10 when this happened. And the followers are all teenagers. And for anyone who sort of knows the origin of what Jimmy Crystal is referencing, the British media personality who, after his death, was revealed to be a pedophile. So I think, I'm not necessarily suggesting that that is what Jimmy is doing with the Jimmys. There's no suggestion of that in the film. But I think, to your point, it is a very interesting portrait of like a cult of personality being led by a figure who is open about his own doubt. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think it's also interesting that the film makes very clear that there are some Jimmys who are probably like, sociopaths because of their circumstances or whatever. But a
Yeah.
lot of them also are just operating out of fear and the fact that there are no other paths forward in this world. And that felt very timely to me as well.
Yes.
What what can fear, rightly or wrongly motivated, drive you to do? And I think the movie is like very insistent on that question as well.
Very well said, and very smart to point out that even the villain here, the evil, truly evil villain here, is human, and that humanity comes through. And I'm really glad that you said that it seems that he, like everyone else, is largely driven by fear. And those moments of humanity do come through. And they're the most striking moments for O'Connell in the film, because even his best line in the film is a moment when he's talking to Kelson, and he says to him something like, I'm enjoying talking to you. You're really easy to talk to.
You're really easy to talk to.
You're really easy to talk to. And I don't like anybody, but he doesn't say it. He doesn't say it kind of the way I said it. He delivers the line much better, but he says it in a way that seems so genuine. Like it really is something that is just occurring to him that if we lived in another world, we could be mates, and I could actually just be. Yeah,
this would
I
have
could be
been a
enjoying
lovely
this.
chat, just a
Right.
lovely chat between two guys.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now then I think he then follows that with something that is completely horrifying. But I think to both of our points here, what I really like about the O'Connell performance is that it's the kind of line that is really menacing. And I think a lot of performers would have said in a way, even though it's supposed to be sort of sweetly menacing, I think they would have really leaned into it. I think they would have loved to layer on the sweetness or layer on the menace to it. And he doesn't. He doesn't. Like, he says it so matter-of-factly, and I think there is something to note about O'Connell being able to do that. For an evil villain to say a line like that, but without that extra kind of relish, makes it actually even scarier.
Yeah, he's very resigned in the whole thing in a way that I think is really interesting. Like, we start out with him sitting in a lifeguard chair like it's a throne. And then more and more, it's like he's brought lower and lower until he is within the realm of the Jimmys, who he's supposed to lord over. He meets Kelson, and it's very clear that as much as he enjoys Kelson, there's also, of course, like a level of intimidation, I think, because Kelson can remember at least some of what the world was, and Jimmy can't do that. So I think the trilogy, and I say this because I hope, A, that there will be a third film, and B, that this will be present in the third film as well, is there is a real like generational divide sensed between all of the various characters.
Yeah.
But I haven't found like any of the moments in the movie where those 2 generations or 3 generations speak to each other to feel like hokey or contrived. I think all of those conversations are crafted very compellingly so that each party is trying to understand where the other is coming from and trying to get through like their own confusion or ignorance.
Yeah.
I will deviate slightly by asking you, how did you feel like O'Connell's performance here compared with his performance in Sinners? Because I'm seeing a lot of people online who might not have known him otherwise, like losing their mind about that.
Really? I'd be curious, I guess, what they're connecting or what is striking them about it. It certainly occurred to me that here we are watching Jack O'Connell in what probably does seem like 2 fairly similar roles, right? Leading these gangs here, having these followers and being such a menacing character. I'll go back to that word, but also having to at least somewhat on the surface be genial, right?
Yeah.
Yet I'll have to give it more thought to come up with a good way to describe the distinction. I can only say for now, Roxana, that I did not feel like I was watching Jack O'Connell go through the motions or replay the hits. Like this is Jimmy Crystal's a distinct. Those are 2 distinct characters, so for me, I certainly didn't. It didn't detract in any way that he played a character who, in some ways, checked some of the same boxes. I don't know. How did you feel about it? Or if there's a complaint, what is the complaint? I suppose.
Oh, there is not a complaint.
Okay,
I was trying to strong arm this podcast into being a pro Jack O'Connell all the time propaganda machine.
No, I'm in. I mean, wasn't Jack O'Connell wasn't the first film. Wasn't his breakout role, and I don't know if it was first or not, but his breakout was Startup.
Yes.
Was that the film? Josh and I on this show reviewed that movie and said, this guy's going to be something. This guy's a star.
Great movie.
So we've been on the Jack O'Connell train since day one. And so
love this. Love this for us.
Yeah, we're all Jack O'Connell all the time. And I mean, he's proving us right with these performances without a doubt. So
yeah. I did not find there to be any sort of overlap past the wonderful scream that he has in this movie and when he, again, very threateningly in Sinners, really puts the stank on Sammy.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I feel like this was an appropriate villain for this film and like what this film was concerned with about who we are. I thought that he really met the material where it was.
Yeah, and well, here's the biggest thing. I mean, now that I've had a little bit more time as we're talking about it, and you already touched on it earlier. I think the biggest difference is that other character from Sinners, the wisdom, the age, the maturity comes through. That character knows everything.
Yeah.
That is imbued in every word that comes out of that character's mouth, right? That character knows every move every other character in that movie is going to make right before they make it, and feels like he's in control all the time. And Jimmy, even as this seemingly evil character and as the gang leader, he never quite feels totally in control, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of chaos happening all the time, and he lets you in, and you see the facade breaking. Like you see that he's actually kind of still that scared boy, right? You see the fear. I think you said that, and you recognize that in him. You see the humanity. You don't see any of the humanity in the character he's playing in Sinners. You know that is pure performance by that character, right? And here it doesn't feel like performance to me at all.
I completely agree. And I guess this is where I need to maybe like eat my own words, which is to say, as much as I'm like, I really missed how Danny Boyle and his cinematographer made me feel like I was going to throw up during some of these sequences because of how jarring and almost unnatural they were. Like, I think DaCosta's approach is really just to like put her camera on and allow the characters to dig into whatever it is they need to dig into. And I think that unfussiness really does benefit something like the Jimmy Kelson conversation and something like Spike watching what the Jimmies, or hearing rather, what the Jimmies are getting up to in this barn attack that is probably the movie's biggest set piece. Like, I actually do think that there is a certain amount of like incredible confidence in letting these frames and scenes and sequences go long and not doing the mixed media thing that Danny Boyle was doing.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree on that. Any closing thoughts, or did we sort of get everything that we needed to get on the table out there?
I think we got everything we needed to get.
Yeah.
The last thing I would say is that I really love the use of the moon, and I'm curious if that sort of imagery, like metaphysical, existential sort of thing, will come up again in the third one, because I was really surprisingly moved by a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Good question. 28 years later, The Bone Temple, out in wide release now. If you see it and agree or disagree with our thoughts, we would love to hear from you. You can email us feedback@filmspotting.net. I'll even pass along your thoughts to Roxana, though only if they're interesting and positive. Thank you so much, Roxana. It was fun as always.
Thank you so much.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? This is Orson Welles. I'm speaking for the Mercury Theater, and what follows is supposed to advertise our first motion picture. Citizen Kane is the title, and we hope it can correctly be called a coming attraction. It's certainly coming to this theater.
Our 2026 movie preview is over, but we are not done talking about the movie year, or looking ahead certainly to the movie year. We are going to preview Filmspotting in 2026. Few different things coming up. This is a tradition we've started here recently on the show. Give you a heads up about Filmspotting Madness, even though we've already announced that, but maybe you don't remember what the topic is going to be. We'll hint at a potential live event coming up. And yes, we will also talk to you about the Pantheon Project. What is the Pantheon Project? No, Josh, I'm asking you. Explain the Pantheon Project. No, I would never do that to you. I would never drop that on you. You're already taking classes. You've got enough tests.
My brain is stretched, Adam. The Pantheon Project would be way too much for me. I just hope I can keep up with the duties I have within it.
Okay, I'm going to try to simplify it. It launched last year.
Yeah.
The goal was just to formalize the process to nominate and induct films into our Pantheon, our eccentrically assembled Hall of Fame. And the other goal was just to make sure that every film in it has been reviewed by the two of us. So we started with all of the titles, 50 some titles that were in there, and we have now started this process. So there were 15, I think, that all of them but 15 that had been reviewed on the show by myself and you. And we've been taking an approach where movies that have anniversaries coming up, that affords us a very clear opportunity to discuss those. Those are already in the Pantheon, obviously, and so that solves that part of this goal. So Fargo, for example, is 30 in March. Citizen Kane, 85 in May. Yeah, having to reckon with Citizen Kane.
It's
having
time.
to re-reckon with The Tree of Life in
Wow.
May. It turns 15. Blue Velvet, 40 in September, and a double dip of David Lynch, Mulholland Drive, is 25 in October. So those are 5 Pantheon titles that we do have reviews on the docket for. But then we do want to have new films entering the Pantheon. And so what happens is, in this dead time of new releases that is coming up in February, we will each nominate 3 films. And we don't have to get into how those titles are categorized. Just know that myself, you, and Sam all nominate 3 movies. And one of those titles from each of us is a title that's never been talked about on the show before, a brand new title.
That's right.
Last year, those titles were Grizzly Man, Cleo from 5 to 7, and believe it or not, Singing in the Rain. Singing in the Rain had never been talked about on the show before, somehow. So that's why it was new. And so then we give those movies the sacred cow treatment. We talk about them, and then we put it up for a vote. and listeners get a vote as well. And the 2 films that rate the highest, those are the 2 movies that get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And the 2 films that were inducted last year, Singing in the Rain was one of them. And the other film was not one of the new titles, but a marathon title from the past, Buster Keaton's Sherlock Jr. So that's the approach. We'll do it again here coming up in February. We'll nominate 3 films each. We'll talk about 3 titles, and then we'll put all 9 films up for a vote, Josh. It's not that hard.
I mean, I think that was about as streamlined as you could make it. Congratulations. I'm completely know what I'm supposed to be doing now. So thank you personally.
More about the Pantheon is available at filmspotting.net/Pantheon. We also will have coming up in March and April our 11th annual edition of Filmspotting Madness, our bracket-style movie elimination
I'm thoroughly
tournament.
Confused.
Yeah, well, you should have
helpless.
this one down by now. You know, it's just a bracket. And
11 years now we've been doing this.
It is something like that. Last year's theme was the best of the 21st century so far. The championship round pitted There Will Be Blood against Mulholland Drive, and There Will Be Blood ended up victorious. It had a competition in it, apparently. This year, we're getting back to our best of the decades theme, and that started in 2018 with the 90s, the best of the 90s, and we've just been going back, and we decided we do have to go ahead and figure out what the best film in the 1940s is, even though Citizen Kane is right there. We'll see. We'll see what our listeners think.
I mean, it's been bumped from the Sight and Sound, right? So
True.
If it's been bumped from that, it doesn't necessarily have to take Filmspotting Madness. Yeah, last year was actually really fun to reassess, this recent 2.5 decades. But I love these decade by decade ones, even though they're getting older, because it's the chance to fill in the blind spots. And I don't have them offhand, but I know there's, between 5 and 10 crucial ones from the 40s. And now I got the push. This is going to force me to do it. And it happens every time we do one of these decades long brackets for Filmspotting Madness. So pretty excited about this year's, going back to the 1940s. Discovery
has always been a key goal here for the show in general, but also behind a lot of these segments in Filmspotting Filmspotting Madness. That's definitely the case as well. Best of the 1940s, Josh mentioned, he's got a few blind spots. I've got a few blind spots I have to take care of. And something we decided to do this year that we've never done before, instead of just putting out like 100 titles and not telling you exactly which ones we're going to make the final tournament bracket until the end, we made it official. Now, I do have some Filmspotting family members, Josh, in the Discord who are lobbying the selection committee for William Wyler's The Heiress. And the selection committee is listening, and it might be added. But other than that, the list is the list. So if you go to filmspottingmadness.com or filmspotting.net/madness, or you go to Letterboxd and search for Filmspotting Madness 2026, you will find all of these titles. And these are the lists. These are the films that will make the final list. Now, there's more than 64 because we do play-ins as well. But these are the titles that will be in the tournament. So check out the list and see how many films you need to fill in, and make sure that you've seen so that you can vote in every single poll. That's what we want. And it's coming up too. So check that list out, start your viewing, and be an informed voter. There you go. This is a little perk we give just to our Filmspotting family members, specifically the Filmspotting Advisory Board. We like to do marathons here on the show. We have done them since the very beginning of the show. It was not planned at the very beginning of the show. It came out of feedback from listeners. We've done over 50 of them at this point. Speaking of blind spots and discovery, it's all about filling in our cinematic blind spots. We will have another Filmspotting marathon scheduled for April and May. We do not have a topic yet. Usually on this preview show, or at least last year, we did know, because at our November, I think, FAB meeting, we did settle that. But we had other things to settle this past November, and so we're not going to get to that until, I think, our February FAB meeting. So it's still TBD at this point. And how that works is me, you, and Sam come to that meeting with a few different topics that I think we each bring two to the table, 2 potential marathon topics. Could be an actor, an actress, a genre, a regional cinema, whatever it is. And we present them to the FAB and we get their feedback. They can throw out ideas as well. And we hone that into a list and then we put that up for vote. I can't remember if we actually give the Film Spotting audience as a whole a vote or if we just restrict it to the FAB, but we do then look at those poll results, and whichever one ends up with the most votes is the marathon topic we go with.
Yeah, the advisory board is great in terms of just that initial response to our ideas, which ones, they find most intriguing or suggest other spin-off possibilities. I've got one idea I'm kind of excited about, and yeah, we'll find that other one, and hopefully time zones are tricky now, but I'd like to see if we can make it work for this Film Spotting Advisory Board meeting, because that's a rich one, talking about our marathon topics.
Just as you said that, I remembered that I had a really good idea a week or so ago, didn't write it down, gone.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if it'll ever come back.
I mean, if you're like me, it'll be in the middle of the night when, you'll just wake up, and then it's if you remember to keep the pad of paper and pen next to the bed.
So I'm really hesitant to mention anything about this, but as you know, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of Film Spotting this past year, and we did that with Film Spotting Fest in March. We felt that was only appropriate because it was the actual 20th anniversary of the show. Moving forward, we have thought about doing more Film Spotting Fests and potentially making them an annual event, though if they're going to be annual, at least not in the milestone years, they will have to be smaller, more pared down events. Maybe 2-day affairs, fewer screenings, but still a lot of fun, still bring in a few guests here and there. And we are looking at doing that this summer. Just like Christopher Nolan with The Odyssey, we're looking at our tentpole event. And our tentpole event, of course, we won't try to compete with Christopher Nolan, but we are looking at this July. So we'll try to give you more information as soon as we have it all settled, but we are excited about it. We're pretty sure it's going to happen. We have dates and a venue at least penciled in. So that's something, Josh.
Some good ideas for programming too.
That's right.
We think would go over about as well as our great Film Spotting Fest titles. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that'll all come together and we'll have some news for listeners soon.
And really, we just thought, and we did get this feedback, not that people were complaining, and they weren't, but would you rather come to Chicago in the summer or in March?
I mean, I'd rather live in Chicago in the summer than March, so.
Exactly. If you would like to stay on top of our schedule, visit filmspotting.net/episodes. Next week here on the show, let's just look more short-term, Josh. We'll have reactions to the Oscar nominations. And yes, you're hearing this after they've already been announced, but we're recording this a couple days before. So sorry, you're living in the future. We don't know who got snubbed. We don't know what all the outrage is about yet. We're living blissfully in ignorance at this point, but we'll be outraged, I'm sure, next week here on the show. Also, the shortest span of time between a movie's release and a Sacred Cow review. Yeah, one battle after another. We're going to be talking about PTA's film that was the number 1 film of the year for 3 of our roundtable folks, including you, Josh. My number 2 of the year. I just felt like I had to be a contrarian, obviously, just going against the grain there.
It's your nature.
Yeah, it's the film of the year. It's clearly the film of the year along with Sinners, and I haven't seen it. It's one of those films that came out early in the year, only saw it once, so much to talk about. Not a lot of new stuff coming out that you feel like you have to discuss here on the show, and this is just a great excuse to revisit this movie and dive into some of those topics. That's why we're doing it.
I almost always have the chance and try to see the movie I choose as my number 1 of the year a second time before we record that show.
I thought for sure you would.
Didn't happen with one battle after another. So I'm in the same place as you, and also very intrigued to watch it after, our revisit for our bonus show for Film Spotting family members on Boogie Nights. It'll be interesting just to have those two so close in my mind when I do take a look at one battle again in 5 days, a week or so. And yeah, I'm sure there will be plenty of new stuff to uncover in that Sacred Cow conversation.
That Sam wasn't going to join us because he's been banned anyway. Preemptively banned from that conversation.
But Sam is like, he's just so open-minded and so unconcerned about, I would say how his perception is going to be received, that Sam could have like hated One Battle when he saw it in the summer. I don't know that that's the case. I forget, to be honest.
No, it's his film of the year.
Okay. So then,
as well.
But then knowing Sam, he could watch it this week and come on the show and be like, well, actually, I don't know what I was thinking
wrong
last summer.
Yeah.
He's just
Boogie
such an
Nights is better
open-minded guy.
than One Battle.
So he really doesn't, you really don't know what you're going to get. But
this is, you're describing the beauty and the folly of Sam Van Hallgren.
Exactly. But now that he's been banned, we'll never know. So
that's true. Maybe I should unban him. It makes for good content, and isn't that all that matters? Josh, speaking of good content,
our sister podcast, The Next Picture Show, looking at cinema's present via its past. If you haven't listened to it yet, now's the time to check out their best of 2025 episodes. See where one battle after another fell on all of their lists. New episodes of The Next Picture Show drop every Tuesday, and you can find them wherever you get your podcasts.
I need you to come with us. The sun is dying. We have a doctorate in molecular biology.
And I ride a bike to work. And it's not for exercise.
If we do nothing, everything on this planet will go extinct, including us.
Poll results time. A couple of weeks ago, we asked you to name your most anticipated film that's scheduled to be released in the first half of 2026. So we are only going up to Memorial Day, trying to make it a little bit more manageable. And it's interesting now, Josh, having done the preview, we look at these titles, and after our top 10 that we did, the draft, and all those honorable mentions, only 2 of these films actually got selected. So maybe we're out of touch with the populace. I don't know.
Maybe. I also think if we, put together a Google spreadsheet, the Memorial Day, pre-Memorial Day thing is throwing a real wrinkle in this. So
fair enough.
But yeah, interesting to see where listeners are, at least in these first half of the year releases coming our way.
Okay. The options. And then Josh will provide the results. Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights, Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, Lord Miller's Project Hail Mary, Zendaya and Robert Pattinson in the drama David Lowery's Mother Mary, The Devil Wears Prada 2, or you could go with other and write in your choice. Josh, how did it come out?
Devil Wears Prada 2 in last place with 3%, the drama with 5%, and other here at 6%. So maybe, Adam, people chose different titles, as you and I did in our draft. 13% of the vote went to David Lowery's Mother Mary, and 14% of the vote went to Wuthering Heights, 23% for The Bride, but winning our poll is Lord & Miller's Project Hail Mary. That film received 36% of the vote.
Now, no aliens, but space, more sci-fi-ish
weird
territory.
For you, Adam, just say weird. Zombies, aliens, sci-fi. It's all weird.
Is it fantasy? Is it fantasy? Does it count as fantasy? Are there creatures in Project Hail Mary? There might as well be. I'm a little surprised, Josh, that The Devil Wears Prada 2.
I am too.
I mean, how pretentious is our audience that film got only 3%?
Come on, people. You're allowed to have fun
too. Sam Van Hallgren will tell you that I vastly underrated that film and did not show it near enough love that it deserved, apparently, upon our initial review of it.
Anti?
I don't remember. I would have to go into the archive to find the star rating on our old website. It's possible. It's possible that I was actually anti, or just like right at 3 stars.
You know what?
It's possible.
I got you reminding myself right now. 1.5 out of 4 stars.
1.5.
Yeah, get this thing get it off our poll. If I had a chance. No, I don't know. I could have been crabby that day. Who knows?
Great. Let's get to some feedback. Here's Tanner Hoisington. He says, I had the privilege of watching Danny Boyle's Sunshine for the first time in December, and it has skyrocketed to one of my favorite sci-fi movies. See sci-fi,
weird.
Josh.
Weird. Adam calls him weird, Tanner.
Now I get another movie about Sunshine is kind of weird, actually. Now I get another movie about our son dying, starring my man crush, Ryan Gosling. I'm in.
Okay. This is from Stevie B. Nah, brah. What is this, Avatar? Anyway, in this house, we sit eagerly planted for good luck, have fun, don't die. Apparently releasing in the U.S. on February 13th. Return of the Verbinskinator.
Okay.
Is this a Gore Verbinski reference by
I
Stevie
guess so.
B? Stevie's throwing a lot at us here. Sure, many are excited for that other new sci-fi, quote unquote weird, the Ryan Gosling vehicle. But this one stars Academy Award-winning dance daddy himself, Sam Rockwell. Throw in Haley Lou Richardson, Michael Pena, and Zazie Beetz. This did come up in my research, and I do find that intriguing, Stevie B. Not enough to draft it, but I'm intrigued.
Okay, here is Rob Steger, who says, it's got to be The Bride. Come on, Jesse Buckley. I can't imagine better casting. Yep, you're right. Josh took it, and if he didn't, it was going to be selected by me during our draft.
I got you, Rob, and so does Rachel, who said, absolutely, it's The Bride. The cast, the costumes, the production look, can't wait.
And here's Patrick, and Sam has decided to clarify one pronunciation here for us. He says, David Lowery's Mother Mary takes this easily for me. And while it isn't Ghost Story, my favorite Lowery, the trailer has some of the mood of that film. I've also not seen Michaela Cowell in a while. Very excited about that. Now, I'm a big pronunciation guy. I like to look these things up and check the phonetic spelling. I'm not sure I trust Sam, but we can put it in the pronunciation channel on Slack, Josh, if you'd like, just as a placeholder until I've approved it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Pronunciation, you've forgotten we have an official Filmspotting pronunciation guide. It's a Google Doc I created probably
I thought it was our Slack channel
10 years ago. No, nobody. How is that helpful?
I've been updating the Slack channel. What have you been using?
And every time you put it in, I roll my eyes and go copy it over to the pronunciation guide, which is alphabetically listed as any normal resource should be.
I literally had no idea that document existed.
Well, of course, because I created it.
I've never
told
opened
you
it.
about it years ago. You know what? Next time you have hours to kill, you should go to it because you will have a field day correcting what I put down there.
The great irony there is like you call me Mr. Spreadsheet. You finally create a spreadsheet. I never look at it. That seems only appropriate.
It's so true.
Okay. We do thank everyone who voted and left a comment. It's time for our new poll. In a couple of weeks, we do finally get to honor the late, great Diane Keaton with a top 5. And we are going to do that by sharing our top 5 Diane Keaton scenes. So we're not going with movies. We're not going with characters. We are going to identify individual scenes. There probably will be a lot of crossover with characters and movies, but not necessarily. And I say that because that could apply or that could be relevant to these poll options here. The question is to choose one Keaton character, and we are throwing out Annie Hall because the right answer is almost certainly Annie Hall. We think it would win pretty decisively anyway. And after much deliberation, we have decided to give you these 6 options.
Kay Adams, The Godfather. Erica Berry, Nancy Meyers, Something's Gotta Give, that one with Jack Nicholson and Keanu Reeves. Louise Bryant from Warren Beatty's Reds. J.C. Wyatt in Baby Boom, that one written by Nancy Meyers, stars Sam Shepard and a baby. Anna Paradis, now every pronunciation I'm double guessing.
Yeah, and I
Anna
just
Paradis.
watched this movie. I just watched it and can't remember how it's said. So
First Wives Club, that one, Bette Midler and Goldie Hawn, and then Mary Wilkie from Woody Allen's Manhattan. You can also write in other.
Do you have a clear winner, Josh, in this poll?
I do, but I don't want to say at this point because my research is not completed. But based on those options and the ones I've seen, yes. By far.
I will go ahead and say that maybe because it's my favorite movie on the list, I would say by far, but there is one other movie. Well, okay, The Godfather's there, but I'll get to that in a second. There are 2 other movies here that I think are pretty great, and those are Manhattan and Reds. It is Mary Wilkie in Manhattan that would be my choice. Very memorable intellectual that she plays in that film, and I do think she's wonderful in it. So that would be my vote. Here's what I want to say. Vote how you want.
Oh,
but
boy.
If you vote for Kay Adams, my response to that would be, tell me you haven't seen any of these other performances without telling me you haven't seen any of these other performances. Because as much as I, of course, love The Godfather, or The Godfather Part 2, and look, a scene from one or both of those movies could end up on one of our lists. It's hard for me to believe that the best Diane Keaton performance or character is Kay Adams, a pretty thinly written character in that movie. I'd be very surprised. Sam and I are worried, Josh, and look, again, we'll see how it comes out. We're a little worried that The Godfather, just being The Godfather, the juggernaut it is, it dominates this poll. But does that feel like a Diane Keaton performance to you? Like the performance that harnesses her talents.
But then I would vote that way. I don't think you have to worry so much about how other people will vote.
I'm asking you, do you think it's the performance that best harnesses her talents is my point.
It wasn't the one that I was thinking of when I said I have a clear option.
Yeah, no, I think it's fun to judge people for their choices. That's what I'm making clear.
Yeah. I get it.
Okay, great. That's what poll questions should be about. They should be about fun, and that's the fun I'm having. So
judgment.
Leave your vote, and also leave your comment. And I hope you leave a snarky comment telling me that I'm wrong, and we'll read it on air.
And if you choose Kay Adams, you better justify yourself.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. I want to read it.
Exactly.
I can't wait. That'll be fun. Vote and leave a comment at filmspotting.net. We will share your results and hopefully your feedback in a couple of weeks. Josh, that's our show.
If you want to find Adam in the show on Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, or YouTube, he's at Filmspotting. You can find me at those places as Larson on Film. We're independently produced and listener supported. You can support the show by joining the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com. That way you'll be able to listen early, also ad-free. You'll get Sam's weekly newsletter, which is stirring up a lot of stuff this week, monthly bonus episodes where Sam's also stirring up a lot of stuff, actually, in our Boogie Nights conversation. And you also get access to the entire show archive as a Filmspotting family member. For show t-shirts and other merch, you can go to filmspotting.net/shop.
Here's a thought. Maybe we should have a Sam spin-off podcast.
I mean, it's kind of getting to that point.
Why not? In our archive, you could hear our conversation about last year's 28 Years Later. That was episode 1020. Guess what? Sam didn't like that movie. I saw it with him. We also have reviewed Nia DaCosta's Hedda. You reviewed that on episode 1038. I didn't catch up with it until later, but I was also a fan. The Marvels, episode 945. Well, that had to be you. Actually, all three of these are you.
Yeah.
I somehow have missed all three of these Nia DaCosta movies until I caught up with Hedda.
You know what? I deserved that review off of the Bone Temple.
Okay.
I'd put in the work.
Let's go with that. Streaming or VOD, if you can still get a ticket, you can watch movies that are playing virtually at the Sundance Film Festival. Those become available January 29th, but the fest is going on January 22nd through February 1st. Expanding in limited release is The Testament of Anne Lee. In wide release, you can see Claire Foy is in H is for Hawk. It's adapted from the best-selling novel. And Josh, I believe it stars a hawk, like an actual hawk.
I think I saw this trailer before I forget a certain film a couple of months ago. Looked quite intriguing, actually. Might have to catch up with it.
Okay. Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson, they're in the near future thriller. That sounds weird. Mercy. And the director is Timur Bekmambetov. And I remember that name because I had to learn how to pronounce it and talk about his film. I believe it was Night Watch. I want to say 2006.
Yes.
Sam and I reviewed it. We reviewed it positively. Here's a little bit of film spotting lore. I believe it was the first show, that review, that was ever played on WBEZ.
How about
Night
that?
Watch. Now, I have no idea what Timur Bekmambetov has done in the past 19 to 20 years, but I do remember Night Watch.
Yeah, pretty sure that's the only film of his I've seen.
Okay. Return to Silent Hill. That's the third film in the Silent Hill series, and that's adapted from the horror video game. Next week, one battle after another, and our reactions to the Oscar nominations. We'll see if we have any other content for you.
Filmspotting is produced by Golden Joe Deso and Sam Van Hallgren. Without Sam and Golden Joe, this show wouldn't go. Our production assistant is Sophie Kempenaar. Special thanks to everyone at WBEZ Chicago. More information is available at wbez.org. For Filmspotting, I'm Josh Larson.
And I'm Adam Kempenaar. Thanks for listening.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.